My name is Marcus, and I'm 26 years old. I live in a small but comfortable studio apartment in Boston. I've always wanted to speak a second language with confidence, but I was held back by social anxiety and the demands of my work schedule. Attending evening classes felt impossible, so I decided to take control of my own learning journey. I committed to spending 2 hours every single day diving into language mastery. Right from home. On that first morning, I sat down and created a realistic plan. My primary goal was to build a strong vocabulary and master proper pronunciation. I printed out my learning schedule and placed it on my bedroom wall where I could see it every day. Day 2. Building the perfect study space, I realized that surrounding myself with a language was crucial. I walked around my apartment with sticky notes, labeling everything in Spanish. My bedroom door became La Puerta, my desk became El Escritorio, and my lamp became La Lampara. This constant visual contact with the language transformed my daily environment into a classroom without walls. Day 3. Finding digital tools, I downloaded several language apps and bookmarked key websites. Apps like Duolingo and Babbel became part of my morning routine. I subscribed to YouTube channels dedicated to grammar instruction and real-world conversations. These resources gave me structured lessons with engaging, easy-to-follow videos that broke down complex concepts into manageable pieces. Day 5. The power of reading. I bought a Spanish children's book from a local bookstore and started reading. The simple vocabulary and colorful illustrations kept me engaged. After finishing 3 children's books, I moved on to young adult novels. Soon, I was reading short stories from popular Spanish language authors. Reading expanded my vocabulary dramatically and exposed me to authentic sentence structures and various writing styles. Day 10. Listening becomes natural. I discovered podcasts specifically designed for language learners. I listened during my commute, while cooking dinner, and before bed. Alongside podcasts, I created a playlist of songs in Spanish and spent time trying to understand the lyrics. Hearing the language through music and conversational audio made learning feel less like studying and more like entertainment. Day 15. Speaking into the mirror, I knew that speaking was non-negotiable. I started having conversations with myself in front of my bedroom mirror. At first, it felt awkward and self-conscious, but gradually I became more comfortable. I described my day, shared my thoughts, and imagined having conversations with real people. I recorded these practice sessions and played them back to identify areas where I stumbled or mispronounced words. Day 20. Connecting with others online. I joined language exchange websites and found people from around the world who wanted to practice. These new friendships transformed my learning into something social and meaningful. We'd video chat for 30 minutes, speaking in Spanish, then switch to English. These real conversations with actual people made the language come alive in ways no app could replicate. Day 25. Movies and television. I started watching Spanish language films and TV shows with English subtitles. Within 2 weeks, I removed the subtitles and focused on understanding through context and tone. Shows like Money Heist and Club de Cuervos were entertaining while simultaneously teaching me modern vocabulary and cultural references. I rewound difficult scenes and repeated phrases out loud. Day 30. Journaling as practice. I began writing daily entries in Spanish in a notebook I kept by my bed. Each evening, I'd spend 20 minutes writing about what I'd experienced, what I was thinking about, and how I was feeling. This practice improved my written expression and gave me a record of my progress. I'd occasionally share excerpts with language partners for feedback. Day 35. Structured online courses to supplement my self-directed learning. I enrolled in an online course on a platform that offered comprehensive lessons and assignments. The structured curriculum gave me a framework I was missing. covering grammar systematically and providing quizzes that reinforced what I learned. Day 40. Interactive apps with gamification. I downloaded language apps with game-like features that rewarded me for consistent practice. The competitive element and reward systems kept me motivated even on days when I was tired. I competed with friends on leaderboards and challenged myself to maintain my daily streaks. Day 45. Virtual. Practice sessions. I discovered online meet groups where language learners gathered for casual conversation practice. These virtual rooms allowed me to speak with both other learners and native speakers. We discussed travel, hobbies, and current events in a supportive, judgment-free environment. Day 50. Social media as a learning tool. I followed language accounts, cultural pages, and influencers from Spanish-speaking countries on social media. Their posts, stories, and live streams showed me current language usage, modern slang, and contemporary expressions that textbooks wouldn't cover for years. Day 55. Technology-assisted pronunciation. I experimented with voice recognition. Technology. Speaking to my phone's voice assistant, I'd repeat sentences and listen as it provided corrections. This immediate feedback helped me fine-tune my accent and improve my clarity. Day 60. Diving into culture. Watch documentaries about Spanish-speaking countries. Understanding the culture, history, and context behind the language deepened my appreciation and made learning feel more meaningful. Cultural knowledge gave me context for idioms and references that I'd otherwise miss. Day 65. Setting. Practical goals. I created concrete, achievable goals for using my new skills. I aimed to order a full meal in Spanish at an international restaurant. I signed up for an online Spanish book club. I committed to giving a brief speech during an online conference in Spanish. These real-world applications gave my learning purpose. Day 70. Weekly reflection and adjustment. Every Sunday evening, I spent time reviewing my progress. I identified which techniques worked best for me and which activities felt less productive. I adjusted my schedule accordingly, spending more time on speaking and less time on redundant activities. The self-awareness kept my learning efficient and aligned with my goals. Day 75. Celebrating every weenie. Learn to celebrate small victories. When I successfully understood a difficult podcast episode, I treated myself to a favorite snack. When I held a 10-minute conversation without stuttering, I texted a friend. These celebrations kept my spirits high and reinforced positive feelings about the learning process. Day 80. Consistency over perfection. Even during hectic work weeks, I committed to 30 minutes of practice minimum. Some days I did more. Some days I did exactly the required 30 minutes. This consistency built a foundation I could rely on and showed me that progress doesn't require perfection. Day 85. Learning from criticism. I actively sought feedback from my language partners and teachers. Rather than feeling defensive, I saw criticism as valuable information. They point out patterns in my mistakes, suggest better phrasing, and celebrate my improvements. This feedback loop accelerated my progress. Day 90. Joy over obligation somewhere. Around day 90, my relationship with learning shifted. It stopped feeling like a task and started feeling like a passion. I looked forward to my practice sessions. I'd spontaneously think in Spanish during my day. The language was becoming part of my identity. Day 95. Visual motivation board. I created a vision board in my apartment. I pinned photos of Spanish-speaking cities I wanted to visit. I added quotations about language learning in both English and Spanish. I drew pictures of my goals and dreams. This board became my North Star, reminding me daily why this journey mattered. Day 100. Integrating into my life rather than treating language learning as separate from my life. I wove it into my existing passions. I'm an avid reader, so I joined Spanish book clubs. I love cooking, so I followed Spanish language recipe channels and watched cooking shows. I enjoy art, so I watched interviews with Spanish artists. This integration made learning feel natural. And Sustainable Day 105, exploring literature and poetry, I ventured into classic Spanish literature. I read poems by Federico Garcia Lorca and stories by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. These works were challenging but rewarding. I even attempted writing my own poetry, which gave me a creative outlet while deepening my understanding of the language's musicality and nuance. Day 110. Spaced repetition systems, I discovered the power of spaced repetition. Using a flashcard system, I created decks of new vocabulary and phrases. The app strategically showed me cards at optimal intervals, helping me retain information long term. This technique replaced mindless memorization with intelligent learning. Day 115. Creative writing workshops. I joined online creative writing communities where participants wrote short stories, essays, and blog posts in their target language. I'd submit my writing and receive constructive criticism from both other learners and native speakers. This feedback helped me understand not just what I was doing wrong, but why. Day 120, creating a dedicated learning. Zonai transformed a small corner of my apartment into my language learning sanctuary. A comfortable chair, a wooden desk, a bookshelf with Spanish books and materials, and a bulletin board displaying new vocabulary, this space became my refuge for focused study sessions. Day 125. Mastering idioms and expressions. I realized that grammar and vocabulary alone weren't enough. I studied common idiomatic expressions and colloquialisms used in everyday conversation. Understanding phrases like estar de buen humor or tirar la toalla made interactions with native speakers feel more natural and less formal. Day 130. Mental wellness and learning. I discovered that language learning can be stressful. I incorporated meditation and deep breathing exercises before and after my study sessions. Taking care of my mental health made me a more effective learner, allowing me to absorb information with greater clarity and retention. Day 135. Community engagement. I joined active online communities dedicated to language learning. I'd answer questions from beginners, share resources, and ask advanced learners for advice. Being part of a supportive community kept me accountable and provided a sense of belonging beyond just learning. Day 140. Speech shadowing. Technique. I discovered speech shadowing, listening to native speakers and repeating their words in real time. This technique dramatically improved my rhythm, intonation, and natural flow. I'd watch Spanish news anchors or TED Talk speakers and mimic their delivery until I could match their pace and emotion. Day 145. Finding humor in the language. I watched stand-up comedians who performed in Spanish. Understanding humor in another language was incredibly challenging but deeply rewarding. Getting a joke meant I was truly understanding the culture and context, not just the words. Laughter became one of my greatest learning tools. Day 150. Accountability. Check-in-C scheduled regular check-ins with my language exchange partner and one online tutor. These sessions kept me on track and gave me structured practice with someone invested in my progress. Knowing I had these appointments motivated me to prepare and practice between sessions. Day 155. Staying current with news. I started watching and reading Spanish language news from reputable sources. This kept my vocabulary current and relevant to modern topics. Discussing news with my language partners became more meaningful because we were talking about real events and contemporary issues. Day 160. Debate and discussion. I joined online forums where people debated topics in Spanish. These discussions challenged me to think critically, articulate complex arguments, and use sophisticated vocabulary. Debating pushed me out of my comfort zone and helped me develop real conversational skills. Day 165. Language learning. GAME. So I played strategic word games designed for language learners. These games reinforce vocabulary in a fun, competitive way. I challenge friends and keep track of high scores, making the learning process playful and engaging. Day 170. Recording my progress, I started recording short videos where I talked about my learning journey, what I'd accomplished, and what I was working on next. Watching these videos over time showed me visible evidence of my improvement: clearer pronunciation, more natural flow, greater confidence. These videos became my personal motivation gallery. Day 175. Leveraging smart technology, I experimented with voice assistants, asking them questions in Spanish and having conversations. The technology provided patient, judgment-free practice and instant feedback. I'd often spent 20 minutes having a mock conversation with a voice assistant, building my confidence before real human interactions. Day 180. Exploring varied accents, I intentionally listened to people from different Spanish-speaking regions: Spain, Mexico, Argentina, Colombia, and Puerto Rico. Each region had distinct pronunciation patterns, vocabulary preferences, and colloquialisms. This exposure made me a more adaptable and understanding listener. Day 185. Building my support circle, I connected deeply with other language learners, teachers, and native speakers. We shared our challenges, celebrated our wins, and supported each other when motivation dipped. This network transformed my learning from an isolated effort into a shared adventure. Day 190. The reflection milestone. Looking back, I reflected on how far I'd come. From someone paralyzed by social anxiety to someone confidently having conversations with strangers. From zero proficiency to being able to read literature and understand movies without subtitles. From treating language learning as a chore to seeing it as a beloved hobby. The transformation complete. After 6 months of consistent effort, my life had changed. I had successfully ordered an entire dinner in Spanish at a restaurant, understood every word, and had a pleasant conversation with the server. I'd given a presentation about my learning journey to my online book club, entirely in Spanish. I'd made friends from 5 different countries and could text with them regularly without a dictionary. More importantly, I'd proven to myself that discipline, creativity, and determination could overcome any obstacle. My apartment, once a place of limitation, had become my greatest classroom. Every wall, every corner, every spare moment had become an opportunity to learn. I learned that mastery isn't about finding the perfect method or the most expensive resources. It's about consistency, vulnerability, and celebrating small victories. It's about understanding that progress isn't linear, that some days you'll feel like you've forgotten everything you learned, and that's perfectly normal and temporary. Beginning, not the end today. At day 190, I'm not finished learning. I never will be. But I've shifted from learning English to Spanish to thinking directly in Spanish about complex topics. I've moved from artificial exercises to authentic communication. I've transformed from an anxious person hiding at home to someone who can confidently engage with the world in a new language. My journey proved that. Language learning isn't a destination, it's a lifestyle. And that lifestyle has opened doors I never imagined possible. The world suddenly felt smaller and more connected. Opportunities appeared that were previously invisible. But most importantly, I discovered that I'm capable of far more than I ever believed. If you're thinking about learning a new language, about improving your skills, about overcoming your doubts, start today. Your apartment, your phone, and your determination are all you need. The world is waiting for the fuller, more expressive version of you that exists on the other side of this journey.